All right, so let's talk a little bit about how this is going to work for multiplayer. So you can't put any game logic on your avatar that's getting loaded in because you can't put photon stuff. And again, when I talk about multiplayer, I'm talking about Pun 2 because that's the only system I've worked with for multiplayer, online multiplayer. You need to put all your game logic on something else. So for this, let's go ahead and just make a scene here. Let's do a plane, zeroed out. Let's make it big. All right, so there's our plane. And so let's create an empty, and this is going to be our player. So if you've never done multiplayer before, go check out some of my other multiplayer tutorials. There's probably a card up in the top left, top right of the screen right now showing you some of my tutorials. But let's just set up a basic one here. So we have a player. It's already zeroed out. Let's add a component, and let's do character controller. All right, this is something that's really great inside Unity for 3D games. You have a 3D character controller. And let's zoom in. We should be able to see it. There it is. The character controller's center point is always going to be where the origin is of your game object. So I like to have my character controller's center point to be at the feet. So I'm just going to go ahead and change my center. I think I just got to bring it up 0.5. Nope, doesn't seem like it's enough. So I have to bring it up 1. All right. So now here's my player. My player is not located at, my player is still located at 0, 0, 0. Ah, there we go. It was set on the center of the object, not on the pivot. That's weird. I don't know why I did that by default. So there's my game object 0, 0, 0, and there's the character controller. I don't really need it quite that wide, so I'm going to make them a little bit thinner. All right, you can kind of see it there. So I'm just going to add some game logic to move this around. So I'm going to pause while I do that because that's not what this video is about. Change my mind. I'll show you a little bit of logic here. So if you know you're going to make a game for multiplayer, you might as well start out setting it up for multiplayer from the get-go. You can set everything up for single player and then think you can add multiplayer later, but you're going to change a lot of your logic. So I'm going to go ahead and start right out importing the Pun2 stuff. I'm not going to use Photon Chat. I'm also going to look for all the demo folders and not import those. It's just a lot of stuff I don't need in my build folders. And I think we're good. There's a lot of stuff in there that wasn't labeled as demo that kind of is. All right, once Pun's installed, it's going to ask for your app ID. I go ahead and grab one right away. I'm just going to grab a random one from one of my projects here. I'll just grab this one. I don't remember which project that was for. All right, put it right in here and set up my project. All right, so I can close that now. All right, now I do all my logic with Playmaker visual scripting. It just, especially with multiplayer, it's so much easier to see things visually and see where things are falling apart. I'll convert some smaller projects to C# if needed, or if I'm working on teams, it's just people need to see it in C#, I'll convert it to that. But it's really nice for doing demos like this. Even if you don't use Playmaker, stick around because you'll be able to visually see how I do things and you'll see how I connect different pieces of logic. So Playmaker users, you can go download the add-ons. We want the ecosystem browser here. I already have it in my downloads folder. Sorry, those that aren't Playmaker users, this will take just but a second. I'm going to go to my assets, import package, custom action, and somewhere in my downloads folder, I should already have the ecosystem. There we go. And this is just something that Playmaker uses to find extra action scripts to use in our FSMs, our functional state machines. I think that's what that stands for. All right, so Playmaker users, you'll need to go to the add-ons ecosystem browser, use the ecosystem, search for Pun2. And make sure you get the Pun2 package. There's also a Pun1 package. So get that whole package. And again, if you're not a Playmaker user, stick around. This will still apply to you. You'll be able to see how this game logic works. All right, so last piece for the Playmaker users. One thing you need to have in your scene if you're using Photon is you need a Playmaker Photon proxy. It comes as a prefab when you import that Pun2 package. And so I just search proxy and search. Look for the first prefab I see, Playmaker Photon proxy, boom. All right, so now let's get going on our logic. So again, I'm going to be using Playmaker for this. Oh, also Playmaker users, one more thing, quick tip, go to, on the Playmaker Photon proxy, go to FSM, go to debug, and you have to unpackage, go to prefab, unpack completely, and turn off show state labels. Otherwise, you'll just randomly have gray squares show up. All right, now back to my player. So when you're doing Photon, so again, even if you're not a Playmaker user, this is a great way to visualize what's happening if you're just writing C#, because you're going to be doing these exact same things, except you're just going to be writing it in script. So this is on our start. So just like when you're writing C# script, your start function, this is where you're going to be at. So the first thing I want to do, and I'd like to label these things just like you would label a method in a C# script. And then you need to check if the game object is yours, because here's what's going to happen. This is your player. All right, so you're going to load it into the scene, but everybody else playing with you needs to know that it's getting loaded into the scene. So there's going to be all this logic on the player, and once it's in the scene, all the other players' computers are going to be trying to access those scripts and use those scripts. So basically, at the start of all your scripts, you need to check and see, is this mine first? Meaning me, the local player at my computer, when my computer sees this game object, am I controlling it? So is mine. All right, so I'm just going to, for Playmaker users, we can just do Photon View get is mine, the owner. Now, one thing, Playmaker users or C# script users, one thing you need anytime you have a game object that's going to be viewed across the network, you need to have a Photon View component on it. All right, so we're going to put a Photon View component on it. And also to make things easy to keep track of where it is in the scene, we can add the component Photon Transform View. And if you're going to be using an FSM, and sending information across the network, you also need to have a game object, Playmaker Photon game object proxy. Okay, it's going to be instantiated. Okay, so Playmaker users need all that. Non-Playmaker users, you just need your script to control your player, the Photon View, and the Photon Transform View. All right, so I'm just going to call this my movement script. So if this object is mine, I'm going to do something. So is mine. If it's not mine, I'm going to do something else. Is not mine. So if you're writing C#, what you're doing is kind of like an if statement. You'll have if is mine, you're going to run that if statement, and then else, you're going to do something else. That's all we're doing here. It's just like writing it in script. So if it's mine, now we're writing our movement script here. Okay, so movement. So I'm using a new input system. So player input. I'm going to get move vector. All right, so if you're using the new input system, everybody, Playmaker users, C# users, you need to have a player input component on your game object. And you need to have an action asset. Is there any in my project? There's not. So I'm going to need to create one. So let's create actions. I'm going to do a new folder called input actions. And I'm just going to call this one player input. All right, and by default, it comes up with some nice ones for us. We got move, look, fire. There's my player input. We're good to go. All right, so I'm going to now choose the input action I want from the player input. So player move. And then we have my move vector. And then because I have a character controller, we can do a controller simple move. All right. This is all stuff you'd be writing with C# too. All right, so same logic here. Move vector, set my speed for 3. I'm going to leave it at world space for now. All right, so let's see what happens here. I don't have my camera pointed in the right direction or anything yet, but that's fine. I just want to see how my player moves. All right, now you've probably like, Philip, I already know how to make my players move and all that jazz, but there we go. Our controller is now moving around the scene. Okay. So all your player logic needs to be on this empty object, right? There's nothing to see here. All right, right now we're just looking at gizmos. There's nothing to see here. All your player logic needs to be on this. Once you have all your player logic set up, then you're going to make sure you have a resources folder. That's an old player, delete that. All right, drag your player into a prefab, okay? All right, as you can see, I'm wearing a change of clothes because I've been vomited on twice this morning. My poor kids are all sick. So I think I left off, we need to go into this prefab for this player now, which I guess I don't need it in this scene. I can just go here, open the prefab. So here's our player. Nothing's really going on with it. Really, before, let's create a new script. So in my case, it's a new FSM. And let's call this script Avatar Loader. So if we go to the Ready Player Me documentation, probably here, and we go to, all right, so I'm in the Ready Player Me Unity Avatar SDK. If we keep going, we should see how to load an avatar at runtime. Okay, so here's an example script. In Playmaker users, I'll show you that I have a custom action I wrote for this script. It's basically identical to this script. So what happens is, so in your start method at some point, you'll call, or at some point in your script, you're going to call private void load avatar. And so you create a new avatar loader experience, and do avatar loader dot load avatar. So you need to put in the avatar URL, and then you'll get a callback, 2 callbacks. And so you can choose what you want to do on the callbacks. I don't know the difference between avatar imported and avatar loaded. I guess imported means it's been downloaded, and then loaded means it's actually visible in the scene. Okay. So I usually wait to do any more logic until after I see that the avatar is completely loaded. So however you want to capture the URL, which is this, I mean, you got to capture the player's URL somehow. So like if I go to, am I not logged in anymore? Let's go back to Ready Player Me, enter hub. So the players can get their link right there, okay, copy the link. So you need to capture that somehow. So either you're gonna have some type of UI field for the player to input their, where'd I go? For the player to input their, oh, dang it. Reopen, close tab. For the player to input their avatar URL. All right, and so that gets loaded here, and that's how it gets loaded into the scene. All right, so I do have a custom Playmaker action. Let me grab that and I'll put it into the scene. All right, so Playmaker users, I have an action set up to load Ready Player Me avatars. I'll put it somewhere. I'll put in the comments of this video, the description of this video, how to get it from me. But just search Ready Player Me once you've added it to your project. And so here we can put our avatar URL. Didn't I copy that? Come here, click this button, copy avatar link, come back here, boom. All right, so scripters, you'd be doing the same thing with script, capture it somehow. So, I mean, and Playmaker people, you're probably not going to just paste it here, right? You're going to have a variable that gets captured from some type of UI element where the player is going to paste it in. But for testing purposes, I'm just going to put that there, and I'm just going to store this as my avatar. And I don't think I have my script set up for Playmaker users. Like, it doesn't send an event, I don't think, when it finishes. I mean, I guess it kind of does. So, like, if I go, wrong project. If I go, if I create a, I'm just going to call this load avatar. And so for Playmaker users, if I create a finish state, now it should be loaded by this point. And so now what I might do is enable movement, because I don't want, while we're waiting for the avatar to load, I don't want my player to move around. I guess I could, but it would just be a bit weird. But we also need to take this avatar and set it as a child of our player, right? Now, writing in script, I think you can use something called like this to find the owner. But we're just going to do set parent. So the game object we want to set the parent of, we're going to specify, and it's going to be the avatar because I saved it as a game object variable. And the parent we want it to be is I'm just going to drag the parent into here. All right, I'm not quite sure how to do it in script, but it's pretty straightforward. I've seen it before. World position states. I shouldn't need to reset local position, local rotation because, actually, you know what? I should, because it's possible that it's going to probably load at 0, 0, 0, and if my player is not at 0, 0, 0, the avatar might not be where it needs to be. All right, so once it's a parent, then I can, because I'm going to have my movement FSM disabled. And this is where it gets complicated. So, because we're dealing with multiplayer, so we actually need to check something first. The good old is mine. All right, so if it's mine, or if it's not mine. All right, I'm going to put this in my start. So if it's mine, I'm going to go like this. If it's not mine, we're actually not even going to do anything. I'm actually going to delete this. And so we're going to load the avatar. Just for the sake of argument here, I'm going to set the string. I'm just going to set a string value here. Because this is how, because you wouldn't really be doing it like this in game. You would have a string variable. So we're going to call this avatar URL. And that's that. So I can make this avatar URL. All right, so you would have already captured that, stored it as a variable. So I'll put the variable there. And then what we want to do is we want to send an RPC. So anytime you're trying to communicate information from one player to another player, whether it be loading an avatar or shooting an effect or firing a projectile, you need to do an RPC call. So I'm going to do send RPC. RPC. There we go. Broadcast RPC event. And I don't need to do it for this player. So it gets complicated. I could, but I'm not going to. So I'm going to do RPC target as others, and I want to do others buffered. So if you're writing in C#, keep in mind this RPC needs to be buffered. Otherwise, players joining late aren't going to see that avatar get loaded. All right. All right. So others buffered. And we want to send string data. And we want to tell the other players what the avatar URL is. But again, all the players have the same avatar loader FSM, right? So we can't send an RPC saying load avatar because then all the players are going to try to load the same avatar URL. So if it's mine, we need to get actor, Photon view, get owner actor number. And we're going to store this as actor. All right, so we're going to get the owner actor number. We might run into an issue here because sometimes when you're getting player properties or room properties, sometimes if Playmaker, you got to wait to like the next state or something because it doesn't happen as fast as everything else. So everything else in your state will trigger before it gets that. With Playmaker, you should be able to come in here and do it as an action sequence, and I'll do that, but I don't think that actually works anymore. So we're going to get the actor number. So now we need to build a string. And in this string, we're going to have two pieces. The first one is the actor number. And so I'm just going to convert the int to a string. And the second one is the avatar URL. And we'll separate them with a comma. Don't add it to the end. Store it as event. We'll just call it RPC string. There we go. All right. I'm going to maximize this so I can see it a little bit better. All right, so we're going to build the string here. All right, and so we want this string data to be RPC string. And now we need an event. And we'll just call this add a state. Send load avatar. And I can't call it that. We're going to call RPC avatar. And so we need an event for this, and we're just going to call this receive avatar. Got to make it global for Playmaker users, add global transition, receive avatar. So for non-Playmaker users, this is basically, we're calling a method here, okay? So this receive avatar is a method. So what you would do is you would have a method in your script for receive avatar, and you're going to do the logic that I'm now putting into this state. So we want to get event string data, and we'll store this as the, we can store it again as the RPC string. And we want to string split. We want to string split the RPC string. The separator is a comma. And we're going to make a new array. We'll just call this string array. And then we are going to array get index 0. And the first piece was what? The actor? Yes, actor. Okay. And so we're going to store this as the actor. Name already exists. So it's a string array. Oh, but it's exists as an int. So we're just going to call this actor underscore s because it's a string. And then I also want to get index 1, which will be our, we'll just store that in the avatar URL field. All right. So we're getting the string event data, string split, array get. And now we want to get owner actor number again. I'm just going to go ahead and move this to the top. And I'm going to, for the Playmaker users, I'm going to put this into an action sequence just to make sure it goes in order. And so I want to get the owner of this. So what's happening here is we need to, so we already, the player who instantiated, or the local player who instantiated this player for everybody else in the room to see, we got their actor number. We need to know who is sending this event. And so then when we receive this, we only want to load this avatar that's saved in this string, this avatar URL string. We only want to load that on the proper player. So this is being received not only by the other players, but by the other players' views of all the other players, right? It gets complicated. So we need to make sure that this string, the avatar is getting loaded on the right guy. All right, so photon view, get owner actor number. We're going to store this as actor int. We can do that here. And now we're going to string compare. So now we're going to compare the actor string, which we received in the RPC. We're going to compare it to this int. So we had to convert the actor int. If it's equal, then that means we want to load this avatar. But I'm not going to do anything here. I only want to break out if it's not equal. So we'll just call this event don't load. All right, so we're going to break out and do nothing. All right, so this is just empty. All right, you don't have to call it anything. I just want to. So otherwise, we're going to load the avatar. So ready player me load avatar. We already got our, did we get our avatar URL? Yes, we did. So we can do avatar URL here. And let's store the game object as avatar. And we also need to set parent. So I'm just going to come over here out of laziness and copy this and paste it here. All right, all that should be good. And then we also need to, for my sake, enable my movement deficit. Okay, and the reason I'm starting the movement FSM as not working is when this player gets instantiated, like I join the scene, but there's already 6 other people playing, their systems are going to look at my player and they're going to want to do something with my player, but I don't want them to do anything. So I want to start with no movement logic, only avatar loader object. And so what's going to happen is when the other players see, they're going to say, hey, is this mine? Oh, no, it's not mine. And so they're going to do nothing until mine sends this event, and they'll receive that event, and then they'll load my avatar on my player. Hopefully that all makes sense. All right, why do I have a little dot here? What's missing? Oh, remote event, receive avatar. All right, and that may be everything that we need. So let's hit play, and let's see what happens. Oh. We need some logic to connect. Okay, so we need some game logic to basically connect to our server and all that jazz. So that's not what this is about. So I'm actually going to just grab some logic from another game and load it here into my scene. All right, so now I think we might have everything we need. So let's hit play and see what happens. All right, on Connection Master, join room, create room, boom, there I am. All right, and I should be able to walk around. No animations, but we're walking around. All right. So just for fun, let's make sure that this works for other players. So I'm going to go File, Build Settings, PC, Add Open Scene, and Build and Run. I'm going to create a new folder, Build, spell it right, and I'll pause while it builds. Dagnabbit, this always happens. I always forget to change my player settings to where it's not full screen. But here you can see my player. The only way to get out of here, because I have no logic to exit, is I have to Control-Alt-Delete now. So that's unfortunate. So let's go into the player settings. I was getting good at always remembering that, but I have a resolution presentation. Let's just do a window, and let's do 9. Oh man, I forget what my favorite resolution is. 920 by 680, I think. All right, and then we can close that and build and run again. Not sure why it's asking me which folder to use on build and run. It should just do it. And continue with demo subdomain. That's for the Ready Player Me. If you're doing cloud build, which is a super useful tool. One day I'll do a video on it. If you're doing cloud build, that little pop-up we just saw will break the cloud build. So you have to go into the code and remove it. All right, so here we are. Boom. Player loaded. Let's just move them over here. And if we go in here and we hit play, boom, player loaded. All right, now, yes, the players are the same, but I manually inputted the avatar I wanted to load. But I'm not going to go into setting up a UI and changing. You know what? I could on this one. Oh, no, that wouldn't work. I mean, I guess I could. The other guy's still in there. So if I go to here and let me switch to this guy, copy his URL, and then we come back over here and project player. So on this guy, I'll just change the URL over here on him. Oh, different FSM, avatar loader, variables, avatar URL. Wait, didn't I have that stored? Is mine, load avatar. Ah, set string. That's where I did it. I'm not sure why I did it that way, but there we go. All right, so now this computer, you won't see it on the other because the other one doesn't have the logic. Well, maybe it would. Maybe it will. Yeah, you probably would see it still because it's sending that information. Even though the builds aren't the same build, it'll still be sending that new string. So there you go. See, this player is different than the other one now. And we should even see that reflected over here. See? Pretty neat. Although this one's not working anymore. No, that's... Oh! The reset on exit. That's it right there. Probably not having that issue if you're writing in C# script, but here in the Playmaker, reset on an exit is enabled by default, which I hate. Let's go. So if I go in here to the player and go to that load avatar, don't reset on exit. That'll solve all my problems. So now if I play here first, come back, let's wait. There he is. All right, loading that guy. Go ahead and move him out of the way. And now I can move over here just fine. And I can still move just fine. Fantastic. All right, that's the end of part 2. What we'll do in part 3 is we're going to take a look at how we can sync the animations across the network. So rather than us just floating here like, I don't know, we're on hoverboards, you'll actually be able to see the legs move across the network. So we'll see you in the next part.